And we are back. What's going on, everybody? We're back for episode 15 of the second season of Mushoku Tensei, Jobless Reincarnation. Affirm. I'm here with Mazer. Lonnie, unfortunately, is not here again. He's celebrating somebody's birthday. And I don't know where Santo's at, but the call's been placed. So, Mazer, how you doing, man?
Doing good, doing good. Been celebrating a friend's birthday the last couple of days myself, so I get it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that won't keep me away from a Shoko Tensei. All right,
No,
we
it
out
will
here
not.
for it.
No, it will not. Um, what'd you think? What you think about the episode?
The episode was good. I feel like it's kind of setting the stage for other stuff. So there wasn't a lot going on necessarily in well, I hmm. There wasn't a lot going on in parts of the episode, I guess is a good way of saying it. Because you have Paul's letter arriving and him
Mm-hmm.
finding out that his sisters are going to come stay with them. Um, they didn't say who the bodyguard is going to be, but I feel like we all know who the bodyguard's going to be. That's
Yeah,
escorting the
yeah.
kids.
Everybody who watched like first season would be like, oh yeah, it makes absolute sense.
Yep, 100%. Um, But then when you get to like what's going on with like Nanahoshi, that was there was a lot going on there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I guess for me the episode was kind of split between like setting the stage for stuff to come and also like diving into the situation with Nanahoshi and kind of she was struggling for a good part of the episode, and then the squad coming in and offering the assistance. I'm here for it. I love that.
Well, I will say this: I thoroughly enjoyed the episode. I'll say that. It's just where they have to fit so much, you know, which is why my main concern from last or 2 weeks ago was like, I don't think they're going to have enough time. I'm
Yeah.
worried about that. But I enjoyed the episode. I was really like pretty excited about this one. It's where, at least for the first one, episode 9, which involved Nanahoshi, was my favorite of the episode, and this one so far is my favorite. I think the one thing people have to understand about why she loses it, and they kind of mention it, it's been like she's been doing this for 2 years,
Yep.
just drawing circles, trying to get a plastic bottle to show up. And of course, Rudy and Nanahoshi like get it, while those guys are like, "What is this? They've never seen something like this before."
Yep.
And I think the one thing I want to say about this episode, I'm going to name my MVP right now, is Nanahoshi is my MVP, obviously. But I thought really getting her out of her shell was like the big point of this episode. And there's Santo.
Hey.
There he is. Mhm. I think we really got to see her over the last couple of episodes. Really watch her come out of her shell, and
Mm-hmm.
a best way of like just showing, hey, you're not here by yourself without having that. Maybe because I blame Shonen for this, that speech where like the main character gets slapped and they're like, you're not here by yourself. You know, you can ask all of us for help. And they just kind of did it for her. And you really kind of see how Nana Hoshi fits into this group. I guess the one thing I want to say is like those who read the source material, this is a huge Nana Hoshi moment. You know, the fact that she was even able to have that little party, and in the light novels, actually have that party at the end, near the end of the episode, at a
Mm-hmm.
bar instead of at school. But it doesn't really matter. The point was you're watching Nana Hoshi like lower her walls and become a part of the family or
Yeah.
part of the friend group. I enjoyed it. But Santo, since I asked Mason this, how did you feel about the episode?
I enjoyed it. It was actually like pretty well done in building Nanahoshi's character. Going from like this workaholic, driven to completely broken to she can actually find happiness in a world that she wants to utterly leave. So I think it was a very well done roller coaster of emotions for her character. Again, I might be getting biased at this point, but I love Cliff. Cliff is that guy when you just need somebody to just
Clutch,
help
man.
you out. He's always there. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was great.
hopefully, I hope you guys both like really saw a lot of the character moments. Obviously, like Julie we got to see her talk more than we've ever seen her talk. And then kind of just that she never says it, but she's jealous that Nanahoshi is being picked up by Sanover.
Mhm.
And then Rudy is immediately picks it up. He's like, you know what? I got you. And he picks her up. And she just kind of see her because she's a child, right? You know, you get it. She's a
Yeah.
child. And I thought everybody really got a chance to shine. Like you got to see Zanoba even more, like because he's a guy cursed with super strength, right?
Yep.
But you notice he's a lot more than that. That's why he's so artistic. That's why he really loves the doll that they got from Rudy's house, and they're really all those people. Even like Illinois only got to see I think like 2 lines the whole episode, but like you got to see her like her motherly like tendencies, and like when Nanahoshi and Cliff start arguing, you see her like hear her sigh, and she's like, "Okay, everything's back to normal," and he just kind of lets him cook, and she just kind of watches. And I guess the best part was a lot of the callbacks to the previous moments of season 2. Especially like when Sophie brings Nanahoshi's knife out and Rudy immediately gets pale. And I'm like, gosh, I was like, I don't want to think about that time, but I mean, it's important.
Yeah. That in particular, you bring up him turning pale. And I think so. I last week was my favorite episode so far of the new core. And I think that part of that is because this week I spent a lot of the episode thinking that somehow when that magic circle broke, it had some sort of like adverse effect on them both, because multiple times throughout the episode, somebody's mentioned that Rudius doesn't look okay, whether it's when they're there after when they find the knife, or even earlier when they're walking and you just said her name, the little dwarf girl.
Julie.
Yeah. Julie's says something about how he doesn't look good, and he's like, yeah, I'm ugly, like kind of like laughs it off. So I spent a good part of the episode thinking that there was some sort of like backlash from that broken circle that like they just hadn't explained yet. And from my understanding, when I get to the end of the episode, that's not the case. It was just maybe like stress and like that sort of thing. So I need to go back and rewatch it now that like I have that out of my head, so I can like focus in more on other parts of the show. Because I was just kind of waiting for them to be like, oh yeah, when the circle breaks like this, like it does something to your mana. Or I was waiting for something like that. And that was the only thing that like kind of threw me off.
Well, I will say this. The experiments that Rudy and Nanahoshi have been running up in her lab, there's a reason why they do it that way. I'm going to wait one more episode before I tell you, because of why Rudy's always the one that like is powering the thing despite all them other people being there. But the callbacks was to episode 4 of the first core, where Rudy, him and Soldat go out because what happened between him and Rudy and Sarah, right? And Rudy is like a lot of people when they get drunk, they just start spouting off, right? And in a weird way to kind of protect himself. And also it was completely fucked up what he did. He was making fun of Sarah. And of course, Sarah talked to, oh my God, I forget her name, but she's like the most important character, even though she has like 2-3 lines the whole time. To like, hey, Rudy, it's okay that you have that it didn't work out with us trying to have sex. But she comes back, and right when she gets back is when Rudy spun off when he's drunk. And then she slaps him. She's like, I never want to see you again. And she runs away. The lady says a freaking badass line, was like, I think she's like, you went too far, because I think she understood what Rudy was trying to do. And then Rudy legitimately grabs a knife off his belt and almost kills himself until Soldat literally slaps it out of his hand. So that's what that reminded me of. And I think that's what he was also thinking of also, because he was there, after Eris left, he looked just like Nanahoshi did.
Yeah.
He was just walking. He needed something, right? And Sarah was, Sophie was his something, but Sarah was what started the change, right? And then Rudy was able to be that for him. The one thing the episode doesn't really get is how long this kind of took, because he basically just had her at her, if I remember correctly, at his house for weeks, just trying to get her to get over this and try something. And then eventually he thinks about, the magic circles, and that's when he calls all his people in to figure it out. So I hate thinking about that time, even though it's my favorite part of the story, because I'm like, Rudy was so low, man. Santo, we talked about it. Mesa, we talked about it. He was so low that there's another timeline where he's just dead. Soldat doesn't get there, and Rudy's dead, and we don't know what happens to Sophie, what happens to everybody, and I could tell you because I know, but but it's just like, I think that's what that really reminded me of, and it was nice to kind of see Nanahoshi really get out of her shell, and she's like the perfect tsundere, because I think it's very, and this is where it's not the only thing I've told you, but Mazer knows I hate tsunderes. I hate them with a passion, because they're like the laziest character trope to write, in my opinion. Because you can always just write, she's bad with her feelings, just make her like beat up the main character every time she that's why when I see a really good one, like for instance, Chizuru from In a Girlfriend is a very good one. A very good tsundere. And Nanahoshi, you saw her get so excited, and eventually she's like, oh wait, because she's like, I don't want to fall in love with this world, I don't like these. So I just thought she had a few great moments.
Yeah, I do want to say I really, really liked Zanaba and Cliff getting to have an opportunity to really like help. And I said as much earlier in the first episode that like I like that Rudy is willing to like kind of pass the torch and allow others to be able to take on like tasks and to do things. And we see that bearing fruit when Zanaba's talking about, why don't we just make a bunch of circles? And they're like, what do you mean? And he's like, like my doll has. And then Cliff, being a genius, going over there looking at it, and he's like, I have no idea what all this is and how this even works. But ultimately leading to Nanahoshi getting to come out of her shell shock that she was in when she's there in the room, and they have all the pictures of the circles, and they're kind of bringing them together, and you see the light come back on in her eyes. I thought that was a beautiful moment. But it wouldn't have been possible without Cliff, without Zanaba. And so just like kind of with episode 1, like that's something I really appreciate about the show is like they're not just giving all of these big things to the MC, like they're allowing the side characters to have big moments where like they can genuinely say that like this wouldn't have happened without them.
I mean, that was actually like one of the things I wanted to talk about, because
go ahead, Santo.
That was one of the things I really wanted to talk about, because I think it was more towards the beginning of the episode, when they were having dinner, and after dinner they were teaching each other magic, and Sylvie brought up a line that goes into what Mazer is saying. Wow, you really can't do everything. And showing that he needs help. Like Rudius isn't this end all be all problem solver, everything, even though he's good at things, but he really needs help from his cast, his friends, his family. And I really like that about this episode, that it really showcased other characters, like Sylvie's healing magic, Cliff's mindset, Zanaba's other perspective, like, hey, why don't we try this? Like different concepts and stuff isn't just relying on Rudius to do everything. So I really enjoyed that about this episode.
Well, then can I'm gonna transition here. I want to see who your MVPs are for this episode. Mine is Nanahoshi, because I just think obviously it just makes the most sense. But who are you guys' MVPs?
I'm going with Zanaba.
And I'm going with Cliff. Cliff is really like catching my attention.
Honorable mention to Julie, because I just think she's precious, and
yeah,
I understand that she can't really do anything, but she was just like, hey man, when Rudy was feeling real down, and that little tug that she does, look, are you okay? I'm like, that's why, right there. That's why. But in terms of I guess the overall thing, we got to see Rudy's family at the start. We get to like an update on their quest for his mom. I think a big thing, and I don't know if you guys know who Annie News is. He does a
Mhm.
like he does a thing where what they left out from the light novels or the source material for certain isekais that he does, and he's going to do one. The one thing is that letter by Paul is obviously pretty important. That his dad sent him a letter, but it's pretty important for his overall character to see how much he's grown as a father, right?
Mhm.
And Rudy kind of mentions it in offline line. He's like he's always still apologizing, even though I
Mhm.
know that he still loves me. If I remember that, that's the quote. And I'm like, we all remember how they reunited, right?
Yep.
Where um Paul got mad at Rudy
Mhm.
because he's like, Rudy's only telling him all the fun parts of the journey, right? He's only telling, hey man, we got to do this, and we went to the forest, and we hung out with these beastkin, blah blah blah. And Rudy doesn't want to worry him because he's like, hey man, I had to fight for my life at certain points, you know. I
Mhm.
made really big mistakes. And then Paul being so down on his dumps, he can't find his wife. At this point, he thinks most of his family's dead, you know, because they also at that point he's carrying the guilt. Like, I sent my son away. Like, I sent him away and sent him right to the epicenter of the
Mhm.
Mana disaster, right? And then when they finally meet, and he just kind of lets out, he's so frustrated. And there's always been this thing that Paul's always been like, are you sure you're my kid? Because you're hella smart. Like, you just don't make sense, which we know why, because he's
Mhm.
from
Yeah.
Earth. So there's ever since that, then they had their fight, their confrontation. They've been getting closer to the point that Paul's always like, "Hey man, I'm sorry." He's like, "I'm sorry, please. You know, I just want you to know that I always love you. I'm sorry." He's always gonna be that way. And nice little. You get to, and then at the end of the episode, we get to see obviously Rudy comes back.
The boy's
Uh,
back.
yeah, boy's back. Somebody call Miles. That's his boy. Then we get to see his two little sisters proper,
Yep.
right? And you immediately get to see their dichotomy, right? Where they're arguing because we would have got here earlier if you didn't do this, blah blah blah. And then Aisha readily loving Rudius, right? But Norn is still like, nah. Like the last time I saw you was beating up my dad. So
Yep.
I'm very excited for next episode, which ironically is called Norn and Aisha.
Mhm.
But how do you guys feel about the more important part, the letter, the kind of us getting an update on what the search is going for Zenith? Because now you've seen Paul's party, they're going to go find her, and if anybody was paid attention to that opening, you should know what Zenith's situation is like. So how do you guys feel about that? And also, obviously, the end of the episode with meeting his sisters for the first time properly.
Oh, go ahead, music.
Um, I I feel really bad for his dad. Just he's been trying for years now to find his family, find his wife, and then he mentions, she's in the second worst place outside of the demon continent, and he's getting ready to have to travel there. And yeah, he has Roxy with him, and she's real powerful and stuff like that, so it'll probably be fine. But at the same time, like, after all these years, you have to worry that he might be losing faith that she's going to be found and, safe and okay. Um, and so obviously with that being in the back of his mind, sending the two girls over to be with Rudius. Um, I watched the intro. I don't know what I missed as far as Zenith's situation. Obviously, I missed something.
Mm-hmm.
But all that being said, I'm super hyped for Ruger to be back and the girls. I really like his character. Um, yeah.
Well, I
Santo?
mean, starting off, okay, Rugert's back. He's one of my top 5 favorite characters in the show. I just like his character arc, especially just being the big brother protector of kids, whatnot. I'm always down with that. Um, s- it's this moment of bliss that I keep mentioning, that everything's happy, and I feel like it's just going to get really bad. Like when he mentioned that she's in the second worst place, like very bad territory, and he's sending his kids to Rudius. I'm like, it's almost like he's really preparing for the worst. Like it's pretty much, I took it as, hey, if anything happens, look over them. And seeing how that, the thing that I'm really most interested to see coming forward, it would be Rudius being a older brother, but also like a father figure,
Hmm.
to see how he would approach it, because you can see him with Julie and just I don't know, it was kind of like being a dad. Like that's what it hit me, like me picking up my two daughters here. I'm like, that's the energy it gave me. So I don't know. Paul's I'm sorry, like he's harboring that guilt that he could have done more, and I think he's really trying to make things right by looking for his mom, for Rudius's mom. And I think he's using that as or at least how I'm interpreting it is, he's using that to get some kind of his penance type thing. But I don't know. I'm kind of like, things are gonna turn bad. I have a feeling, and he's preparing for it.
I want to say a lot of stuff, but I'm trying to stop myself. But overall, I guess the last thing, since we're only sticking to Mushoku Tensei this time, we're not going 3 hours. Next episode is titled Norn and Aisha. So presumably they're gonna take center stage, right?
Mhm.
I'm always curious to see how people react to the sisters, right? Obviously, the one who's like, "This is my brother, man." Maybe a little bit too much. This is my brother, and then one that's like, I don't really mess with him at all. So next week, I'm going to be very curious to kind of see how you feel about both little sisters. I guess, and I'll also give you guys a little tidbit. Sophie doing what she did for Nanaho, she's kind of is always funny to me, because if there's one person Sophie is always going to be threatened by, it's her.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like to the point where like she's petty and Sophie's never petty. But I'll tell you guys after, once we get off the live, because I think you guys would think it's hilarious. But I'm so I guess it's just weird because like you guys, I really like this episode. But I really like this episode because of what I know happens in between each moment. But I don't really, it's still a kind of a transition. I wish they kind of gave, maybe if they said Nanahoshi recovers next episode, but and then like this episode was like where they're kind of getting everything together. But like I said, and like I told Mazer, they don't have time. I don't think they have enough episodes to do this the right way. Especially since they're getting two cores. That they just got to sprint through. So now what I'm worried about is the resulting Norn and Aisha part of the second season is also going to be rushed, and that's going to be a shame. But anything else you guys want to add to this episode, because this is real quick, nice and easy?
Yeah. I going back to kind of what Santo was talking about, where Rudius is gonna have to kind of assume a father figure type position. I think that Paul sending the kids to him is also a sign of respect for like how Rudius, he's like, you're a man now, like sort of situation. And even though obviously he can't really just ask like, hey, can I send these kids to you, and like that kind of thing, it shows like a level of trust that he has in Rudy, and I think that that was very big. And then he makes a comment about how he would bring the family to come live with him when all is said and done. And then he's talking about how it's like, oh, an ex-neat taking care of his parents, like what a 180. But then when he picked up Julian was talking to her, and how's Zanaba treating you? And she's like, he feeds me a lot. And then he's just like, oh, that's good, like sort of thing. Like it reminded me a lot of like a parent talking with their kid, and their kid just says something kind of weird, and the parents just like, oh, that's great, yeah, sort of
Mhm.
thing. That that was, she's like, yeah, things are good. He feeds me a lot. And then he's like, oh, well, food's nice. Yeah, sure. But I'm looking forward to if I'm not mistaken, Norm's the one that doesn't like Rudy.
Mhm.
I'm interested to see their dynamic moving forward. Because, like you said, the last time she saw him, he was punching their dad in the face. That's going to be something that Rudy's going to have to overcome somehow. But at the same time, with that being said, Rudy's in a really good place right now, and he's also got a lot of people that like really respect him. And so I don't know that necessarily Rudy is being the one that kind of like heals the rift, but I could see like the other people that are around Rudy and like his interactions and stuff like that with them being more kind of what like softens her towards him. And it'll be interesting to see if that's actually how that plays out or not.
Well,
Go ahead.
real quick, I'm gonna add this. By the way, because you guys should know this, letters don't travel the way we travel. So this was sent by Paul damn near a year ago. I just want you guys to know that this was sent by
Okay.
Paul a year ago. So remember, he just sent Paul a thing about him getting married, and Paul's like, "Hey, congrats on getting into magic school." so, so obviously information. I always find it fascinating how information travels in the world, because it's basically like if I'm sending Santo, you live in Texas and I live in California. If I send you a letter by horse, maybe it'll get there in a year, maybe 7 months. I don't know how long it's supposed to take, right? But if I'm trying to send one to you, Mazer, in Kansas City, like how long is that going to take? And think about, and I'm like, oh hey, I just started this new job, and then you're like, oh that's cool, I might move, and then like, oh I met a girl and I'm about to get engaged, and like that's how these are things that you maybe have a phone call over that's taken over years of time.
Yeah, and you got all this magic, you can't send a letter better.
Like you saw how hard it was for them to summon stuff.
Just to get a bottle.
Yeah, and by the way, they took that from Earth, so somebody just got their bottle taken away. But we don't need to talk about that.
No, I'm talking about like you can't like use magic on a bird.
You see how magic works, Mushoku Tensei. It don't work as fantastically as it does for other people.
I mean, maybe that's true. I'm just like, it's frustrating because like I want like the flow of information to be better, because with all that being said, and now we're looking at that being like a year ago, that means that Paul is not going to be able to be at Rudy's wedding. And that makes me very sad, because I was hoping to be able to see that and be able to see them have that interaction. They hadn't seen each other since when they were fighting previously. And then Paul's there for the wedding and they can shake hands. And he's like, you know, you're a man now, and I respect you, or something like that. And now that dream of that happening is gone.
Vanished. Yeah. I will say what I'm really looking forward to is how we already know Norm doesn't really like Rudius at all. I think a key component next episode is going to be Sylvie. I think Sylvie's going to be very pivotal in changing the mind of Norm, because I know what's the other one's name? Aisha. Aisha is gonna be like, no, that's my, I'm down with him. Like, don't mess with him. Mm-hmm. Norm's not gonna be that at all. She's gonna be very standoffish, whatnot, not want to hear anything. I think Sylvie is going to be that person that changes her mind.
Well, this is Sylvie's time in the story, man. You know, she got like technically 4 episodes of season 1. Then Eris got basically all of season 2, all of the majority of season 1, like 3/4 of it. Roxy had 2 episodes, so now it's Sophie's back, because by the time it gets to Roxy, he's gonna be with Roxy for a while when Roxy finally gets her chance to shine again. So it's Sophie's time right now, and like you said, how she tried to help Rudy with healing magic, because that's the only magic he can't be chantless with, right? And and then she's trying to learn disturb magic, but Sophie's like amazing because she's like his first disciple, so she just never has that like I never have a problem with chanting. Mine just probably, I'm probably forgetting something. There's somebody who's gonna watch this in the comments like, no, you forgot in chapter 27 of volume 6 if this happened. I'm like, all right, bro, you got it. So, but I think right now Sophie's she's just great. I think I mean it's like every time I see her on screen, I just smile.
I'm here for the
like,
age of Sylphie.
Mm-hmm.
It's a golden
I'm
age.
just waiting till Best Girl come back though. Let me stop. Roxy Best Girl. Nobody can tell me otherwise. But anything else you guys want to add before we wrap up?
No, I'm good.
All right. That was our review of episode 15 of season 2. This time we definitely cut it by a lot. Going 3 hours was crazy. But we'll see you guys next week for episode 16, Norn and Aisha, where we finally get to see them, Rudy's 2 little sisters in damn near all their glory, and we should be with them for a little while if they kind of follow the source material like I'm thinking about before the next big thing happens. But thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye, guys.
Peace.
Peace.
I'd say stay on the line. Let me tell y'all about